Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and today we're going to talk about the Greenskins. Not of what could happen in terms of new units, but rather what could be fixed up with the lords that are currently available. While I'm still kind of surprised that the Greenskins are going to get some new content, it's the perfect time to revisit them and fix up some of the characters that could do with an extra mechanic to make them a bit more unique. And I believe that that's a big reason why Creative Assembly are looking towards the Greenskins, because that's what they did with the Empire in Thrones of Decay and patch 5.0. And to be honest, it was really well done. Both Franz and Gelt have their own unique style of play now, which makes them incredibly fun and leads to more replayability. And I imagine that would have probably bolstered up some sales of Warhammer 1, so people finally got access to them. When we look at the Greenskin characters available, there are Grimgor, Azhag, Skarsnik, technically has his own unique mechanic, but that needs to be fixed up, and Wurrzag. So again, people who might still not have Warhammer 1 would go back, buy them, and use their new version when it comes to Warhammer 3. Alright, let's start with Grimgor. Now Grimgor, I believe, should be a rather basic character in terms of simplicity, because all he's really known for is beating people to death, and don't get me wrong, he does that very well. There's a reason why he is one half of the once and future Git. So, why not have something which focuses around beating down? What if you had something similar to that of a Lithanar, but rather than, assassinating characters, you'd have to get into some sort of battle, and it's going to be kind of like a questing system, I guess, where you'd get into these battles, you'd be able to pick up either a permanent bonus for Grimgor, or an item that you could give to your other lords and heroes. The idea, once again, is Grimgor disappearing to different locations, attacking, and then when he gets bored, he leaves, right? So he's killed his target and then he just goes off to find the next one. In theory, it would be very similar to that of Kolak and Archeon. With vassals, you get stronger, but here it's if you kill a certain character, you get stronger. Now, obviously, that's not a full mechanic, which I understand, but then it would be further supplemented with extra things. Creative Assembly are very slyly pushing towards the end times. There have been loads of rumors here and there that we're eventually going to get an end times DLC. Well, what if there was a way to kind of follow with the end time story where Grimgor does beat down Greasus, or pretty much just an unnamed ogre here, and then you'll get access to a building which will allow you to build up some ogre units, only available to Grimgor's faction, so no other Greenskins would get access to this. This would mean that you'd get some bigger dudes, it would follow the end time story a little bit, kind of maybe hinting towards the potential end times DLC in the future, and then have some fun here where you'd have Black Orcs as a front line and then flanked by ogre shock troopers. I feel like that would be a really fun style of play. It's something that you could do during the end time stuff, but a lot of people don't pay attention to that because, end times. Just as a quick note, as I've seen people mention it recently, and I've mentioned it many times, it would also be kind of cool, this is not specific to Grimgor, but I'm just adding it in here, just give the weapon options to Black Orcs. If you don't want to make them different units, this mechanic exists in Troy and could easily be ported over, especially if the rumors are true that CA Sophia will be working on the next DLC. It would make Black Orcs a lot more useful, and let's be honest, you kind of want to use a lot of Black Orcs if you're playing as Grimgor. Azhag should stay functioning the same once again, but should have some sort of build-up, again, very similar to a questing system, to just build up the Crown of Nagash in its own little panel, which kind of like empowers the crown rather than anything else. This would then give you some faction bonuses, some access to maybe the Cataclysm spell of death, and maybe some death spells every now and then with an Orc Shaman as a bound spell. This is only happening once you've empowered the crown as much as it's possible. It's kind of similar to that of the Nemesis crown, but not so much just go fighting, and then potentially lose it. And it shouldn't be as strong as the Nemesis crown. But the idea is a little bit of flavor, a little bit of fun. The overarching identity of the Orc should still be there, so you'd still have the war mechanic and so on to play around with, but this is only just to make each faction a little bit more unique. Epidemius did it in such a way which was smaller, yet the identity of the character was very well preserved within the growing roster of Nurgle characters. You don't need to have a lot of mechanics that confuse people and don't work. Instead, one good one is always key. Alright, we're going to move on to Wurrzag now. Now, Wurrzag is actually one of my favorite characters in Warhammer Fantasy because he's just completely random, and I think that could be represented here. First up, there should be a faction effect which improves a maybe spell resistance or physical resistance for your whole army, for your whole faction, per allied or vassalized Orc faction. Now, you might be saying, well, they already confederate them by beating them down. But the thing is that Wurrzag isn't trying to build up a war in its own right. Wurrzag is a support character. He's actually trying to help out Grimgor, which is why Grimgor is so annoyed. He's trying to help out the other orcs because sometimes the visions kind of push him towards that. So you should be incentivized as playing as Wurrzag to help out the other factions. And that could further be added in with a random event, a dilemma system, right? Where you could either get buffs for yourself, buffs for the other factions to keep them supported, but there could be random chances, some RNG, which might be a little bit annoying to people, but to kind of just go wrong, right? So you'll turn the enemy lord into a squig for a few turns, which means that he now is wounded for 5-6 turns, whatever, right? And with that, the faction that you just affected, well, yeah, they don't like you. They might even declare war on you. It's something that actually happens in Wurrzag's lore, so this could be kind of cool to see that representation. There's possible benefits there with making your Savage Orcs very, very strong, but there's also problems there with, yeah, it could just go wrong. Now, I do also think that Wurrzag should be able to revive factions in a very similar way to how you get Karl Franz being able to revive all the elect accounts, because again, you are here for the greater good of the Greenskin race, not for yourself. Now, I left Skarsnik till last because I actually do think that if we do get some fixes to Grimgor, Azhag, and Wurrzag, we will not get anything to Skarsnik, which might not be a bad thing. Skarsnik needs a patch. It needs to fix up the issues because, let's be honest, it's a decent DLC for what it was in Warhammer 1, but it's still not great when it comes to Warhammer 3, mostly because there is no proper mechanic when it comes to the Carrick 8 Peaks scenario. You get a core building, and you are able to recruit orcs when you get there. Prior to that, all your goblins are cheaper, which is cool, and I imagine that if we do get like the giant squigs, well, colossal squigs and mangler squigs and so on, this faction will be a lot more thematic. But what really needs to be done is something stylized as a patch dedicated to Queek, Belegar, and Skarsnik, which is going to focus around 8 peaks. I mean, we've already got some interesting stuff, like, for example, when you play as the dwarfs and you take the Silver Pinnacle, there's, like, spawning of armies and so on. That stuff should happen. First up, it would be a great way to actually level up characters, because you could boost and power level up characters through that. But, you know, having some incentivization. You've taken 8 peaks with one of the 3 factions, and then in 10 turns, 2 of the other armies will come in. This would be the perfect time for Creative Assembly to implement freeway battles into the campaign, because they are possible, right? We know that in multiplayer they're possible, and this means that you'd see armies from the 2 other factions coming directly beelining for it until you build a certain building, and then getting some better bonuses from that, right? It's not so much bad for Skarsnik, to be honest, because Skarsnik has a really good campaign here, and his bonuses are just extra fun parts. But let's be honest, Belegar got fucked over with this because he's still on a 50% upkeep increase on his units until he gets it, and it is pretty damn brutal. Plus, imagine if we actually had proper freeway battles, right? This would be really cool to see just for these scripted battles, if anything. I mean, in a perfect world, we'd see them all the time, because there are certain situations that you're playing in the campaign map where freeway battles would be great. But you'd have the Skaven of Queek, you'd have the Goblins of Skarsnik, and then you would have the Dwarfs of Belegar all fighting it out. It would be kind of interesting, and it would definitely be very thematic. Nothing needs to be done for Grom, in my opinion, because Grom's great. You have all the Centigord milk that you can drink. Yeah, do that with what you will. But yeah, he's a great DLC character. He plays extremely well. He's still very, very fun. He's very unique, has his own mechanics. So I feel like he's in a very good spot. But everyone else does need something there. Maybe you guys have some better opinions. Maybe you guys have some better ideas. If so, leave them in the comments below. I do know that Creative Assembly staff do actually watch my videos. I'm throwing some ideas out because I've been thinking about the Greenskins, as they just need fixes to the characters. They don't need fixes to the race. I think that the races are fine. And I know some people complain about it, but let's be honest. You've got some very good units. You've got a tech tree which isn't too bad, and yeah, the mechanics work, just not all the time. Well, to be fair, the war mechanic works, it's just it's had issues with the AI doing it, but yeah, I mean, they're in a really good spot. Khorne doesn't really need any fixes, and the massive rework that needs to be done is for the ogres, that's for sure. So yeah, let's hope that we can get some nice fixes for the Greenskins. Again, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Have a great day, guys. This video is likely going to be late. The weather's been brutal. I've been busy with some other stuff. But yeah, see you guys.